You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Fred Childers. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. We have a lot to get to. The fallout at LSU continued this week as the university is now on defense over a massive $50 million lawsuit. LSU's Associate Athletic Director of Football Recruiting, Sharon Lewis, is calling out top administrators for what she says is nearly a decade of retaliation, cover-ups, and conspiracy. Dion Guillory has more from the news conference held by Lewis's attorneys.
A $50 million lawsuit filed in LSU Associate Athletic Director Sharon Lewis's name. The suit claims retaliation against Lewis for reporting former LSU football coach Les Miles for sexual harassment.
I used to watch Bill Cosby on TV when I was a kid. I thought he was America's father. I used to watch Les Miles on TV. I thought he was Mr. Football as far as coaching was concerned. But at some point, the shield was pulled off, and we saw the real wolf here.
Executive Deputy Athletic Director Verge Osbury and Senior Associate Athletic Director Miriam Seeger are also named in the suit. They are also the only LSU staffers disciplined last month after a report from Hush Blackwell found widespread mishandling of sexual misconduct allegations.
James Williams, you were chairman of the board. You knew the committee that handles athletics for the board. The athletic committee for the board of supervisors, you knew.
In an interview with USA Today, Lewis said it is still a hostile work environment for her. She says she feels panicked, isolated, and doesn't feel protected. Her lawyers say the fight is just starting.
We know there are others out there. And just like we're going to fight for Sharon Lewis, I want you to know we're going to fight for them too.
Now we go to Abby Rocha, who has been following this story for months and brings us the shocking details of that new lawsuit. We do want to warn you, some of these details are disturbing.
A bombshell $50 million lawsuit against Louisiana State University now tops a long-running list of accusations.
The things that Sharon Lewis went through, no human being should have to suffer.
Many against former head coach Les Miles. Associate Athletic Director Sharon Lewis says Miles was inappropriately fixated on the looks of female student workers, making comments like she hired too many black girls and needed to fire them, and to stop hiring female workers who were, quote, too fat, too ugly, or too black. Miles told her student workers should be blonde with large breasts, joking with the entire football staff that Lewis's hires look like a, quote, bad bowling team. In the lawsuit, Lewis claims Les Miles engaged in explicit sexual acts with multiple students. She brought all of these accusations to her boss, Verge Osbury, as well as Miriam Seeger, who allegedly did not act, which is when she says the harassment began. Lewis says she was called names, screamed at, denied opportunities, and raises.
Sharon Lewis had a nervous breakdown because of the way she was treated.
All because she refused to participate in what she is calling a massive cover-up designed to give LSU athletics a competitive advantage. Lewis states the harassment and retaliation were so bad she would hide under her desk if she saw Miles coming, and is currently seeking help to repair her mental health.
We know there are others out there. And just like we're going to fight for Sharon Lewis, I want you to know we're going to fight for them too.
Lewis says she was the only athletic department administrator that reported Title IX violations.
Les Miles hitting back moments after that lawsuit was filed. Attorney Peter Ginsburg released a statement on behalf of Coach Miles saying, quote, this lawsuit is a work of fiction, 8 years in the making. It goes on to say Les Miles has no liability in this matter and that the accusations against him are false and meritless. Then on Thursday, LSU blocked its employees from testifying about the university's potential mishandling of sexual misconduct allegations. Both head coach Ed Orgeron and Scott Woodward were expected to be in attendance, but sent in written statements instead due to the legislature's COVID-19 policies. It's worth note, the Senate committee has the authority to subpoena someone to testify. And Senator Regina Barrow says nothing is off the table at this point. And on Tuesday, a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Education confirmed the federal government has opened a second investigation into LSU. This one focusing on whether the university is in compliance with Title IX requirements. Investigators will look at how the university responded to student complaints of sexual assault and harassment dating back to 2018. The investigation has been referred to the Office for Civil Rights. On Thursday, Governor John Bel Edwards gave an update on the state's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the state's vaccination progress. Here's a portion of what the governor had to say.
That more than half of all the suspected and confirmed cases of the UK variant, the B117 variant, are coming out of that region. And you don't want to make too much of that because people in all the other 8 regions say, well, we don't have a problem. No, it's in all 8 regions, and I believe that Dr. Walensky, the CDC director, has stated over the last couple of days that the UK variant now is responsible for most new cases across the country, which is causing a lot of concern. We are excited to announce a new vaccine hotline as part of our Bring Back Louisiana campaign. It can be used to schedule a vaccine appointment, to find vaccine providers, to connect with medical professionals who can answer any questions that you might have about the vaccines. The hotline number is 1-855-453-0774. The hours of operation are 8 a.m., 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then noon to 8 p.m. on Sunday.
At a time when people were hurting, some may have taken advantage of unemployment benefits. The state auditor found hundreds of millions of dollars distributed to people who didn't qualify. As Chris Welty reports, the Workforce Commission primarily blames the surge in people applying for unemployment.
The Louisiana Workforce Commission is aiming to recoup more than $400 million in improperly paid unemployment benefits. According to the Louisiana Legislative Auditor, the benefits were paid out between January and September 2020. The auditor's office began investigating after a surge of costs and the number of applicants during the pandemic. In 2019, there was an average of nearly 2,000 claims per week. Between March and April 2020, LWC averaged more than 88,000 claims per week. The Workforce Commission claims they struggled to verify people's eligibility, and employers were given extensions to submit wage reports to the state. If they were not given the data, LWC based determinations off self-reported information from applicants. The auditor used data from LWC to identify people who were overpaid or ineligible for benefits.
The Workforce Commission agrees with the auditor's report, adding the investigation highlights many of the challenges that they faced during the pandemic.
In a letter to the state auditor, the commission says supplemental benefits through the CARES Act and other federal resources incentivize, quote, bad actors to take advantage of already overwhelmed state workforce agencies. The next step, LWC is attempting to enter into repayment agreements with those impacted. If that doesn't happen, the money can be recouped from a person's state and federal taxes.
If fraud is determined, the recipient must pay a 25% penalty, and that person will not be eligible for unemployment benefits for at least 1 year. The Workforce Commission adds fraudulent cases can be referred for prosecution. As we approach the legislative session, one Baton Rouge lawmaker is looking to make a change to the state's constitution. As NBC Local 33's Jonah Gilmore tells us, lawmakers say this clause should have been removed decades ago.
This line in the state's constitution has Representative Edmund Jordan on edge.
Anyone of good conscience should want to see this go away.
If passed, House Bill 196 would make all forms of slavery in Louisiana illegal.
Cruelty and exploitation, largely against Black and brown Louisianans, is completely inseparable from our history of slavery. It is modern slavery.
According to the state constitution, slavery and involuntary servitude can be used as punishment for crime.
While some might consider it brave or controversial, in fact, it's probably embarrassing that we haven't tackled this before today.
The language allows for the use of unpaid labor in prison.
Prisoners make up tax bases in cities. And you can't tell me that that's any different from slavery.
Jordan hopes that the public and the legislators support his bill to end something he says should never have been in place to begin with.
You know, slavery came into Louisiana in the early 1700s and was supposed to be done away with in 1863. But yet, here it is, 2021, and we still have this on the books.
Similar efforts have been taken on in other states. If passed, the change would require approval from voters statewide. The legislative session starts tomorrow, and we're, of course, very excited here. Up next, we'll talk to an organization that breaks down the laws in plain English so we can tell you how it affects you. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm joined by Robert Travis Scott. He is the president of PAR, which is the Public Affairs Research Council. Thanks for coming on, first of all.
Yeah, hey, this is a great time to be talking about this legislative session this spring. It's just going to be an entertaining session.
Absolutely, and we're going to get into those bills. I wanted just to describe to the viewers sort of what your organization does. It's public policy. It's a public policy organization, and every year when the legislature goes into session, you guys do, I've sung your praises before, I'm going to do it again. You guys do a great job in breaking down the bills in a nonpartisan and easily understandable way. So we appreciate that. That's why we've invited you on the show today. So with that, what sort of bills should we be looking for in the session that's starting tomorrow?
Well, look, this is going to be, I think, a fun session. I think for the average person, it'll be more interesting and entertaining than usual. Of course, there's taxes. That's the big issue. We've got all this federal money coming down. How are they going to spend it? That's a big issue. But you've also got potential legalization of marijuana, potential legalization of prostitution, concealed carry laws.
I think those will spawn some arguments. What do you think?
And then they want to expand the Supreme Court from 7 to 9. There's all kinds of really interesting stuff that's going to be going on this session.
Yeah. I think you had mentioned budget. Is there anything challenging for the legislators in terms of the budget?
It is. It's how to spend so much money they don't know what to do with it.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's not your usual problem, but you see the federal government is adding on from the American Rescue Plan $3.2 billion just to the state alone. Hey, that's not including nearly $2 billion to the local governments. That's not including over $2 billion to K through 12 education, on top of other money that the federal government has already sent to the school districts and through the Department of Education for education. They've gotten more than $4 billion in the past year just for education. Plus, the federal government has done a higher Medicaid match for Louisiana. Mm-hmm. That's going to free up more money to the tune of maybe $600 million in the in the next year or so. We've got so much money. We're trying to figure out what to do with it. And the federal government money that's coming down just to the state, it's not clear how we can spend all that money yet. We're waiting for all the rules to see exactly how we can position it.
So yeah, and that was my next question. A lot of that money we're used to seeing come in with earmarks, saying you have to spend this on infrastructure or you have to spend this on health care. But we're literally getting a pile of money dumped in our lap with no earmarks, right?
Oh, no, not necessarily. There are going to be certain rules of how you can and can't spend it. Like, for example,
we just don't know what they are.
Well, we don't know what all of them are. We can't, like, write down all of our retirement debt, for example. Mm-hmm. We probably can put some in the rainy day fund, probably can put some in the unemployment trust fund, which has been emptied as a result of so many unemployed people having to use it. We had $1 billion in it before the pandemic. Now it's down to near zero. So that's a potential use of it. The important thing is we want to set up so that our budget is sustainable in the long run. We don't want to use all this money as one-time money that you then have to fill in your operating budget later on. You've inflated your operating budget, and that's a real danger. And you also want to spend it on things that gives you a good return on investment. There's a lot of additional money too. I just gave you the money that's going to the state for the state government to kind of handle. Early childhood education, child care, for example, is over $700 million that those types of facilities are going to get. Higher ed alone will get plenty of money that'll go directly to it. And so you're talking about, probably in excess of $10 billion of new money coming into the state. Doesn't all have to be spent in 1 year. Could be spent over, say, maybe 3 years.
Right.
That's going to be the biggest challenge in the session.
Absolutely. Well, we know Governor Edwards will give his State of the State tomorrow, and usually he takes that opportunity to lay out his legislative agenda. I believe personally that he'll talk about funding higher education. How do you believe he's going to do that? How do you think he wants to do that?
Well, he wants to give higher pay to people who work at the universities and colleges. There's a really great program that's being started called the Murphy-Foster program, and this really affects more the community and technical college level. And what they're going to do is, and it's a fairly good return on investment. It's only about $10 million, I think, that they're putting into it, but it allows you to go get a credential and take a step up in your career. Just a quick hit training on something that may only take a matter of months, and you can raise your level of pay by going to a new job. That's going to be a very exciting plan that they're putting out. Right.
Now, I was looking through these, the pre-filed bills, and I didn't even come across the prostitution bill. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. What are the details?
And I'll be honest, that is not one of PAR's areas of focus for our research. but no, I think it's a legislator who wants to see a safer environment for women, and that's why she's advancing the bill. So yeah, there'll be a lot of conversation about that, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the marijuana as well, marijuana bill. I imagine there are several of those, correct?
Well, that's right, and marijuana and hemp and other various ways of trying to tax those things and trying to legalize them or trying to alter how you can obtain them. So that'll be quite a big topic for us too this session, I guess.
You guys have a website where people can log on and take a look at these bills?
Yeah, we're the Public Affairs Research Council. We're known as PAR, P-A-R, and you can go to parlouisiana.org, and you can look and see what we're writing about these issues. And you can also, the legislature has its website. If you want to look up an individual bill, and
it's pretty user-friendly as well. Yeah. Why don't we call you PARC? We always call you PAR, the Public Affairs Research Council.
Well, it's because years ago, a legislator was so upset with the truth of what we were saying in one of our reports that he stood up and said, that organization is no better than PARC spelled backwards. And so,
did that really happen?
Yeah, that's a true story. And so from then on, we use PAR.
I had no idea there was a story behind that. I thought I was going down a dead-end road. That's funny. Wow, interesting. Okay, Robert Travis Scott, president of PAR. Thanks for coming on.
You got it.
Appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more This Week in Louisiana Politics.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Months after the 2020 election, the Louisiana Secretary of State is working on focus on the integrity of elections with the creation of a new commission. Political reporter Shannon Hecht brings us the details of the group's goals.
Because at the end of the day, our job is to serve the voters of this great state.
That is the goal of the newly appointed Louisiana Commission on Election Integrity and Voting. Secretary of State Kyle Ardwin says that while there are no problems with the record voter turnout election in 2020, he wants the commission to tackle the issues seen around the country.
Despite Louisiana's national leadership in election administration, some have called into question our election processes and procedures using false narratives and stories of voting issues from other parts of the country.
Topics covered by the commission include expansion of voting by mail, polling, security, and hours. The commission is designed to reflect the voting population.
I think it's well-rounded: business, cybersecurity, technology, African-American representation, female representation, and business and industry.
The public's input will be welcomed by the commission to better improve future elections. In Baton Rouge, I'm Shannon Hecht.
The commission plans to host about 5 public hearings around the state where the public will be allowed to share their input on what they want to see changed in our elections. Up next, we'll have a look at the week ahead on your local election headquarters. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
All right, looking ahead to tomorrow, along with the first day of the legislative session starting, Governor John Bel Edwards will hold his annual State of the State address at A.W. Mumford Stadium on Southern University's campus. Now, the governor's State of the State address is typically where he lays out his legislative agenda. Now, some believe it will include funding for education and other COVID-related issues. Of course, we'll be all over it and have the latest for you. His address is scheduled to begin at 6 p.m. and you can watch that address on our website. That is brproud.com. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.